Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents with me, your host Valerie, and sometime co-host Ms. Purrington. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy. You can keep up with us on Twitter and Instagram at Comedy Wham or on our Comedy Wham Facebook page. Please rate and review us on iTunes if you are listening to our podcast. In addition to podcasts, Comedy Wham brings you articles, album reviews, and live shows featuring the best in Austin comedy in all its shapes and formats. Launched in 2016, the podcast project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country. Today, I'm sitting down with somebody who I would describe as an astute, woke dad, and somebody who calls out political, cultural, and racial inequalities, or inequities. And I just found out, because he was a guest on Thanks Academy, that he is a Rage Against the Machine fan, and we might go down a wormhole for that.
Oh, I could go down a wormhole with some Zach De La O all day long. I love that band. I just stayed up till like 6 a.m. the other day watching their Woodstock '99 performance, just because I wanted to see his face while he performed. And it's such an expressive face that he has, and I was thinking, like, he must, because I know what Rage Against the Machine is completely about. They are an anti-capitalist, political band that sees through a lot of bullshit. So for them to be playing Woodstock '99, just the commercialism of it must have been like a split for them. They must have been like, "Oh my God, this is so stupid," but also it's Woodstock.
And here goes the wormhole already. He is the host of Mixtape, which is actually a reboot of his Friendly show, and it will be returning to Fallout as a monthly show. He just had it at the Out of Bounds Comedy Festival. He is the co-host of First Tuesday at Radio Coffee. And he was recently featured as one of the 5 local comics that make us laugh on Do 512. And now Comedy Wham presents Leo Garcia.
Oh yeah!
Hi, welcome.
I did jump in early about that.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I used to do just like the introduction of Comedy Wham. I used to read these things about the comic in front of the comic, and somebody gave me some feedback saying, you really don't read this shit when you have the person right in front of you. Like, just try to be conversational about these things. And what has happened as a result of that is people engage with these things. Oh, wow, you found that? And so it happens, and sometimes I really go down the path and I have to pull back and say, okay, wait, I got to finish my official intro because I'm OCD about that. So it happens, and it's okay. Well, thank you for being here.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me.
I was telling you about you did the rare, well, why did you pick me? Because few comics ever asked that, and it was really funny that you asked, well, why did I pick you? And I recounted that I'd seen you a couple of years ago, and then for a really long time I didn't see you perform, and I happened to catch 2 performances of yours. One was for one of the FPIA nights, and then I saw you again recently at Sure Thing, and maybe I was partly biased because I did have my son with me at that Sure Thing show, but between the FPIA and the Sure Thing, I'm like, wow. I was just blown away by how much more stage presence, and it's not like you lack for stage presence. Just how much more polish I noticed. And again, it had been several years since I had seen you, and I'm like, oh wow. And then I was like, oh, well, he's going to be on Altercation Festival, and then you're on Out of Bounds, and it's like, oh wow, things are really coming together for you.
Yeah.
And so I actually categorize this as I'm long overdue to sit down with you.
As far as growth and stuff, you probably didn't see me for a while because I actually didn't go out for probably the first year or two. I moved to Austin. About the first year, just because I started doing comedy in San Marcos for probably the first 4 or 5 years. I was doing it consistently out there, and that's where I started my Friendly show and all that stuff. And then when I moved up here, I got really intimidated by the scene because the scene is very creative. And I tell that and people kind of shrug it off because it seems like maybe a cop-out answer or something. But like a big anxiety attack about trying to go toe-to-toe with the amount of talent that's out here. And everybody has such unique perspectives and got great storytellers, great joke tellers, great joke crafters. We got variety, the gamut. We have short, concise jokes. We have long storytellers, and I just don't know where I want to fit in all that. So for about a year, I just didn't do anything.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I produced maybe one show that whole year when I first moved here. And then, I mean, I disappeared to such an extent that when I talk to some comedians, even still today, they're like, "Oh man, you still in San Marcos?" I'm like, "Man, I've been living here for like 5 years already."
Yeah.
You know? So, and I do get that a lot because unfortunately, I don't really hang out like other comedians.
Well, there's a reason. There's several reasons for that.
Yeah.
So, you know.
You said had a dad presence.
A woke dad.
Presence, which is fun. I don't have any kids, but I do, I am very, the first word that comes to mind is maternal. I feel like, I always wanted a little brother or sister, just someone to kind of like, "Hey buddy, you know, this is the way of the world." And, so I never really had that. So when I started doing comedy again, I took a few people, I got really close to a few people. And so I feel that kind of, instinct to, I don't know, simplify the world for other folks.
Yeah.
Cause it's so weird. But, like some of my favorite people that I started with, even in San Marcos, like, Clara Blackstone, and, Trace Holt, just some folks that I really connected with here in town were mostly people who came from like country, rural backgrounds, and then moved to a city because that's what I'm from. That's where I grew up. I grew up in a really small town and stayed there for way too long. Then I got in trouble with the law there for a while. So after that, it's hard to make that connection between like a small rural life and a city life and be like, everything's the same, because it's completely not, you know?
Right.
But it's been a lot of fun being here and getting to, I guess, a point of growth. I have no idea. You had said that you had noticed there was a big difference between my earlier stage presence and my later stage presence. And I remember this interview I did with Texas State Magazine back when I was in San Marcos. And they're college kids. They're just putting out a thing because they have to. They have a deadline. You know, I get it. And they did this interview, and at the time, I guess it was like 2014 or so, they were asking me about what my comedy style was. And I was like, I try to keep things short, light. At that time, I didn't really touch on anything political. And when the interview came out, and they're like, he's a funny guy who likes short jokes, period, nothing political, period.
Holy
And I was like, and I looked at that for a long time, and I was like, that's not who I am either. And that threw me for a loop. And I remember the first joke I had when I started going back out here in town was I wrote a joke about how shortened Mexican words or Spanish words like guac and Guadalupe is just white people gentrifying language. Right? And it resonated, and it just got people not uncomfortable, but like their eyes open a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it was necessarily funny, but it just had a different kind of reaction to what I used to do. And then I worked it into this whole like food gentrifying bit, and it just started snowballing from there. That was the first joke that I remember having this like political impact, this kind of like bigger than me kind of connotation. But even at that, I kind of still drop them and like, okay, well, this is good for now. And I have that tendency to do that with my jokes. I'll drop a joke when I have like a good punchline at one set, and then it'll just stew in the back of my brain for years. And then I'll be like, you know what? I could add to that, and I'll go back and add in more bits like that. So when I have people that want to come see me, they're like, oh, dude, I'll come to your show. I'm like, dude, it's the same jokes. It's the same. There's like 2 new minutes on an old joke that you've already heard. So I'm not a good self-promoter, is what I'm getting at. I'm really not.
Leo, I hate to do this to you, but we're going to bookmark this because I have a question that I launched my podcast with, and then we're going to go travel back in time and find out about this rural town that you grew up in. But let me start off with my icebreaker question, even though we've clearly broken the ice here. One word to describe your past.
Colorful.
Okay. Is there like something you're envisioning in your head there?
Well, I was in a band for a long time, in a metal band. In a small town. We did a lot of drugs, and I was stuck in that mentality for a long time.
Do you want to out the small town that you grew up in?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, the bigger town was New Braunfels.
Okay.
I grew up in a town called Geronimo, Texas. My graduation, the graduating class 2003 was 70 people.
Whoa.
And I was number 35 on purpose, because I used to do, I love being under the radar. That's who I am as a person.
Uh-huh.
I like to know myself better than other people know me. So I used to calculate the amount of problems I'd have to do on a quiz or something to make an 80. I knew I'd get them right. I don't want to be in honors. I don't want to do all that because it's more. They expect more from you, and I don't want that. So I would fly under the radar on purpose for a long time. And I'd have teachers and counselors and stuff be like, they're like, you have the ability to do more. Like, they could all see it, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Thank you. Like, you have you have the ability for leadership and all that stuff. And I was like, mostly, I love my sister so much and my brother, but they were overachievers, and it did, from what I can tell, because they're like 10 to 13 years older than I am.
Okay.
And it doesn't really bring you anything that hard labor doesn't bring you also.
Interesting.
It doesn't seem to me that being in the upper echelons of society brings you anything extra than just being a normal person. You know? Like, they went to MIT.
Whoa.
My sister has a tech company. My brother has a law degree. And I have a history. I eventually went back to college. But I have a history degree. And I just got it because I was like, I think I need this. But to me, nobody's ever peaked out higher as a person than someone who is just working a life. And that's a whole other thing, too, that I learned growing up in a small town. I said I was there for way too long, but I worked like night shifts at factories and like shipping centers and like real manual hard labor all the way through to like 6 a.m, you know? And I realized at some point, too, that like this is another type of person who can do this job, who can be at this company for 25 years. And that's a whole life for a person. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And something about the contrast between like what we categorize as the life you're supposed to lead, if there is a supposed to even, and what people like think they need for themselves, it just always bugged the hell out of me. So I always wanted to stay under the radar. So that way I can set my own limits. And people are like, well, you're doing good for how I think you are. And I'm like, cool, yeah, I am. You know?
So it's interesting to me hearing you talk about that life growing up and observing parts of society that some people will never cross paths with. Like, you are a student of, I almost feel like I really did hit the nail on the head with, identifying some inequities, because you've been observing differences between different populations and making comparisons most of your life.
Yeah. It's easy to do. My parents were pretty smart, so I have some perception or skills. I'm good at perceiving things.
Yeah.
It's something that my wife appreciates and absolutely hates also.
Yeah, double-edged sword,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. So sometimes, like, if we're having a little argument or something, and I know her, like, the back of my hand, I know my wife very well, and I'm like, are you sure you're not doing this because of this reason? And she'll just be like, I need a minute. I get you. Okay, I'm sorry. But yeah, luckily I've always been very perceptive. Whenever I play any video games where you get to pick your stats, it's always perception all the way up, and then like strength is like 2. But it's helped. I don't know where to even start with how weird my childhood was, but if you know anything about Hispanic parents, Mexican parents, they're a bit loose on the rules and also strict at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So
I had one.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
My dad would take me to the bar with him when I was a kid. I just did this joke as a throwaway a long time ago, but it still resonates in my head. But, like, you know how your olfactory senses will, like, remember things? Mm-hmm. So, like, you'll smell something like, it smells like Grandma's house. You know, you're just taken back.
Grandma's tortillas.
So I feel that way about a bar. The way a bar smells, the way, I've spent a lot of time there. Mm-hmm. So when especially like the men's bathroom, like the piss smell, I'm like, childhood. and so I knew as a kid that was weird. I wouldn't tell anyone because I don't think anybody had that same experience. So I just kind of keep that all to myself. And so that was, I guess, where it started. Like, I know that there is a life that I'm supposed to have as a kid, but my life has extra things in it that aren't really relatable to people at this point.
Yeah.
So I just kind of kept that all to myself. And then growing up and what's weird too about being a kid in a bar is that you see a lot of adult behavior, and it doesn't resonate until later what's going on. You know what I mean? You
absolutely.
See people discussing things in a bar, or maybe in a Mexican bar, I'm not sure. But it's like a town square for really poor people. So their lives are being acted out in real time with real emotion to the display of anyone who's there to watch.
Yeah.
You know? And so seeing a lot of that, too, growing up in a small town. Yeah, colorful.
Very good. One thing I know about Hispanic families, because my dad was raised in a very small Texas town in the Valley with 7 siblings, and one thing that I know from that and watching them is they're very funny.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. Because that is where I remember my first big laugh, like uncontrollable laughs, was me and my cousin talking just about Simpson stuff. But we were literally laughing for what felt like hours on end. Mm-hmm. We would just quote Simpson things in the 90s, which was hard because there was no internet, I guess. But yeah, big sense of humor. Everybody's always cracking jokes. Mm-hmm. My dad's particularly a wise cracking. He's retired. He was telling me that he picked up a couple of shifts at this little gas station near his house just for some extra cash. And he's telling me how he likes to. It's so stupid, but how he likes to when he's like putting away things, he likes to fart in the cold room because it's like it makes a little steam pocket. I'm like, dude, you're 70 years old. You don't need it. It's funny. It is funny, but this is just bizarre. Yeah. And my mom was always pretty straight-laced. She had to be the responsible one because my dad was not. But she's always had a really good head on her shoulders, and I think also the perspective. Also, too, just adding into the more colorful stuff, my mom worked for Child Protective Services when I was growing up, and since she was the responsible one, and we were poor, there wasn't really room or money for babysitters, so she would take me a lot of times to go do things that she had to do with like foster kids. Like she would have to, for visitation and stuff, she'd have to facilitate all that. I remember going with her once. to take this girl to go visit her dad in jail. And it was like an hour drive or something like that, and I took my Game Boy. And this is like the worst day for this girl. And I'm like 8, and she maybe 10, I don't know. But it's like the worst day for her, and I'm like, you want to play my Game Boy? Like, it was just another day for me. I was like, yeah, it was pretty fun. So, I mean, that happened a lot. And then I'd have to stay with my cousins a lot because she was always working after school. So I would stay with my cousins until she'd come pick me up at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. And then we lived in the country, so we'd have another hour-long drive from there. And it's bizarre. You know, I haven't thought about this stuff in a long time, so thank you.
Sure. And it is one of the questions that I often ask is what's an early comedic memory? And I try to be very careful about not ascribing it to the stereotype. I just know my own family and what I observed, and it's like, if I had to find an early comedic memory, it would certainly be something about seeing my dad with his siblings and the ball busting and just the ridiculous things that they would say to each other. And so I almost felt like, because I've seen your act, and there is that, here's where it all falls apart, is I've been recently talking to a couple of people, and they refer to the Latinx. Like that is an identity that people are taking on, or aligning themselves with. And I forgot where I was going with this. So I didn't want to, ascribe that to you, but I've also seen some Latinx, ownership of what you do on stage. So I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm making a stereotype here.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a good swath of. In my day, it was we were Chicano. We're all, that was the term that they were trying to press for specifically Texas Mexican identity. Yeah. Because it's all different. That's what's weird about when people move to Austin from California. Like, the food's all different. I'm like, motherfucker, you moved 1,000 miles.
That's right.
What? Why would you expect the food to be the same? This bugs the hell out of me.
Oh, I get. Oh my gosh, we're going down so many wormholes here. I'm seeing somebody who's in LA, and he visits here, and we go enjoy fantastic foods. Yeah. But he's like, well, I want to go to a Mexican restaurant. I'm like, bitch, there's no Mexican restaurant here because we're Texas. It's Tex-Mex. Yeah. That's what you're going to find. And if you want a Mexican restaurant, then just go down the street at your house.
You have that there.
Yeah.
Come and eat our food.
Yeah. We're dominated by Tex-Mex.
Yeah, there's I feel like I can get a stick in my craw every once in a while about just the Latinx community in general, because like 30% of Latin or Hispanic, whatever it is. 30% voted for Trump, and I'm like, they don't think that about you. Like, they won't know that about you offhand when they look at you. Yeah. And just the whole community can go dig a ditch. I don't know. Sometimes I get really frustrated with these preconceptions of. I mean, you've heard me talk already. Yeah. Society is just the worst.
Yeah. Indeed. What was your first time on a stage doing stand-up?
It was in New Braunfels. It was at I think it's called Jerry's Ice House. So I was in a band, right? My friends from that band had another like blues rock band, and a lot of things in New Braunfels is a band will play for like 3 hours, and they'll have an intermission. And I had just seen Maria Bamford at it was a Cap City New Year's Eve. Oh, so we got like the good tickets. We got the little glasses. Me and my wife were so excited, and I was blown away. I was completely. I had seen specials. I've watched nothing but comedy specials. I hadn't seen a live performance ever, and I was just enthralled. I was completely head over heels for the whole vibe, the energy, everything, the command of it, like the ownership of it. You're not working with other people. It just seemed really, really cool. And so I did I did like 10 minutes at my friend's intermission for their show, and it was just I don't know. It exists actually somewhere on because they had a recorder there to catch their stuff, and he was just recording the entire set. And so he was like, "You want to hear it?" I'm like, "No, I don't." It was so bad. I remember having a joke about the ultimate reality show would be a place called Stereotype Island. And it's just the worst stereotypes acting exactly the way people want them to. And of course, then I acted them out, which was probably the worst thing to do. But this was 2010, so it was like fine or whatever. But no, it was
So what
bad.
was the gap between seeing Maria's show and then that performance?
Probably about 3 months.
Okay.
It was like March or April or something.
And that whole time were you just stewing about, I want to do this, I want to do this?
Yeah, it was mostly like, I think I can do this more than anything else. I've always kind of been the funny one, crack a joke and all that stuff. And then after I did it, of course, now I know what a room for comedy is meant to be, or how it's supposed to be shaped, how you're supposed to direct it, how you're supposed to corral people into this state where they're ready to receive comedy.
Yeah.
But I did the first thing at an intermission at a bar, at an open bar that I think you could drive through and buy beer.
Oh gosh.
So it was the worst. It was the worst experience. And then I went back to school. I went to TLU, Texas Lutheran University, and this was maybe 2 years later. One of the classes offered was a stand-up, improv, and script writing class.
Okay.
And I was like, well, and that's what got me started again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because at first I was just like, I don't know if this is for me. I just kind of, you ruminate on all the failure, like normal life. And then I tried it out again. There was a guy.
Where was Texas Lutheran?
That's in Seguin, Texas,
Okay.
which is a little bit south of San Marcos, which is about an
Nearish to San Antonio.
Yeah, exactly. There's a guy who was going there from Houston in the same class. His name's Kevin Iso. He's recently been on Adam Devine's House Party.
Oh, wow.
So he's on Comedy Central, and he lives in New York, and he does very well. Doesn't promote himself either, so I appreciate that. Like when he tweets something, it's like 2 likes, and I'm like, I understand that. But we were in the same class, and the first day, or the first couple of class sessions, the instructor had us all bring in clips of what we found funny. And I brought in a Mitch Hedberg clip. He brought in a Bill Burr clip. And then the rest of the kids in the class, and of course they're adults, but everybody's a kid who's younger than me, brought in, I would call it meme type humor. So one of them was like a video, it was like Ryan Reynolds interviewing Ryan Reynolds. As Green Arrow interviewing Deadpool about how it was bad. Not Green Arrow, Green Lantern, doesn't matter. But it was bad. It wasn't funny to me. It wasn't funny to Kevin. I was a comedian, whatever, right? But he actually had stage time and did stuff. And anyways, they put on the video, and it was on for 2 minutes, and wasn't doing nothing for me. I looked over at Kevin, and he looked over at me, and I went, nothing. And he just started laughing, he was like, that's funny, that's really good. And I was like, oh, thanks. And then we would perform for, every time we went to class, we would perform a 5-minute set.
Oh.
Right up for the class. So there's probably about 20 kids in there.
An audience that seems to think memes are funny, but not necessarily comedians.
Yeah,
so again, tough audience.
Yes. So, and then also I'm fledgling. Kevin's maybe 2 years in, from Houston, so he's got some legwork, and he knows how to at least be on stage. And I was in a band, so if I didn't have anything covering me, I was like, ooh. So I used to put on my hat. And
we didn't talk about what was what were you doing in the band?
I was a guitar player.
Okay, so easy to hide. You got your instrument.
Yeah, okay. I did terrible backing vocals, and I was a guitar player. I still play guitar, but that's just for me. But I would put my hat down real low. And I remember I had this joke about Lady Gaga. It doesn't matter. But I didn't think it was funny at all. I was like, I think this is a joke. And I wrote it down. And I did it, and the kids laughed. And I was like, what? I remember thinking, this is not funny, but you're laughing. And I was like, this is weird. Okay. So there's a formula to it. There's an attitude to it. that you can say things, not necessarily believe in them, but they can be construed as funny.
Yeah.
People will take what they want from them. And I did jokes like that for a long time until I got, more of my voice, I guess. But what was the question?
Who knows? Oh, no. It all started with asking what was your first time on stage doing stand-up, and then we progressed through that timeline.
And the cool thing, though, is at the end of the semester, they had us go through like improv and script writing and all that stuff, so that was pretty cool, too. But at the end of the semester, we had to perform for the school in this auditorium. And there's probably about 300 people there. And I did 5 minutes, and it was great. It was my first actual comedy show. I had a really good set, and it was my very first set. And it went immaculately. And then about 6 months later, Kevin ISO himself put on a show at that same auditorium. But it wasn't like just an actual comedy show. So like people from Houston, San Antonio came in, comics, but it wasn't a school thing, so none of the kids went. So it was a big auditorium, but there was probably about 10 people there.
Aww.
And that was my first big bomb, which is also necessary. So it just, it was very scattered. I ended up working the ticket booth at the front, and there was like a comics family and then like 4 students. And I was like, I went up first, and I was like, you may recognize me as the guy up front who took your tickets. And it was bad. It was bad for me. Right after that, I went to my first open mic in San Marcos.
Okay.
And I just talked about how I ate dog shit. And it was nerve-wracking, and that was when I first started making comedy friends. Because they were like, oh, I get that. I'm like, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
So that was nice. But yeah, that was my comedy progression.
Yeah.
And now I can't shut up about it.
So you finished school at Texas Lutheran, and then you moved to San Marcos? Is that what happened?
No, I started doing comedy in San Marcos while I was still in school.
Okay.
Because I had a couple of years left after that class. I was on a little festival there called Mr. Fest. But when you're a small town doing stuff, there's like 5 other comedians, and you form this little bond, and you just kind of want to stay there. You're a big fish in your small pond, and I could be on any show I wanted, which was like 3 different shows. But I stayed there after I moved to Austin in 2014. I still drove back there to go do my shows because I wasn't ready to come up here yet. And again, that's just me having anxiety about like, will they like me? So,
I'm wanting to get to this big theme. I've been bookmarking it since the very beginning when you said a couple of things about fitting into Austin and what you felt like your role was and what you could bring to the Austin scene compared to what you were seeing others bring to the Austin scene. And I've been seeing and observing, so I've been going to watch comedy since 2012. So I've seen like the evolution and birth, if you will, of really strong pockets of communities within the comedy scene. So probably the one that I've seen the biggest growth in is with the gay, queer, LGBT community. I mean, they have created something very powerful.
yes.
And, I'm starting to see that with our black comic friends, where, there's finally starting to get, their powerful voice and presence. And then I look at who are strong Hispanic, Chicano, Mexican, whatever you call it, Latinx, who are our strong voices there in the stand-up. Like, I'm seeing it. I was just talking to Yamina Cohen, who's, really big into improv and acting, and I see some of that happening in the improv scene, but all right. Where is it where is it in the stand-up scene?
It is in Austin. It's not as prevalent. Josh Castro runs a cool show called Border Laughs out at the Santa Cruz Theater.
Got Luis Flandes.
Got Luis Flandes. Vanessa was too talented to stay at one place. She can't. She can't be contained. She's an amazing presence.
Yeah.
And there's Crystal. Can't remember her last name. I'm so sorry, Crystal. But it's diminished. There's something about Austin and Latino communities that just isn't as simpatico as we'd like, but I don't know if there's is even to blame. For me personally, it's hard to bring up Mexican stuff because I'm not a good Mexican. I'm not into the culture. The culture can be toxic. The way I was raised was in terms of how we live now in 2019, it was toxic. I don't know how to reconcile those things in a funny way.
Yeah.
I know that the mentality that it gives you towards the current state of politics is unhealthy because you tend to think of people who coalesce outside of their group as disloyal, or people who seek mental health stuff as weak. So that already writes out a good percentage of jokes that tend to work in town, talking about how your life is trash and you're trying to be better when that's not really that applicable, And because I think the hard work ethic of Latinos has really underscored our ability to relate to current means of self-reliance. So, like, my dad would always tell me that you have to just hard work. You have to work really hard. And I was like, he had no idea that I could just show my butthole on the cam and make probably more than he ever did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The methodology doesn't really fit the era anymore.
Yeah.
And I think, or at least personally, I would feel that the Latino community, whatever community in this town, is a little still trying to find their bearing.
Yeah.
So, like, one of my friends, Stephanie, she's the singer for Bitty Bitty Banda, which is a Selena tribute cover band, right? Mm-hmm. And I see that, I'm like, yeah, you're bringing our culture to 2019, bringing it back out, but now she's just relegated to these things. She's trying to like express herself in other ways, and like, well, we really want you to stick with the band,
Yeah.
And so that you don't want to get stuck in those things. I love Vanessa Gonzalez as a performer. I think she's amazing.
Yeah.
And when I saw she was going to be on HBO Latino, I was like, oh fuck, you can still be just relegated to a Latino thing, to a Latino showcase, to like, you're not, at least in my opinion of what that means, is like, you're a good comedian. Here's time, but we still have to relegate it to this community. Yeah, exactly. And for me personally, that's not what I want to be at. I once did a show opening for Raymond Orta from the Valley, and it was a lot of Mexican Americans, and I opened up by saying, you know that cousin that you have that leaves town and goes to college and thinks he's better than you? I'm like, that's me. Because there's that whole dichotomy in our families and our relationships that there's the way to be, and then anything else outside of that is just trying to be like white people. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if like the rest of everybody else is still wrestling with that, but the first showcase I was ever on at Cap City Comedy was a diversity showcase, and that bummed me out. You know?
Yeah.
Staying under the radar doesn't work when people will be like, oh, you're that color, so go over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't really mesh with my the way I like to do my reality, I guess.
Sure. Oh my gosh, I'm realizing this is such a profound conversation. We could go on for hours and hours about
I am a talker.
Yeah, no, but there's a lot of good points and nuggets, and I'll interject a few things. One is, and this is where I want to pivot to you specifically. So Vanessa is talented in so many ways. Yes, she got the Latino HBO, but she also just got the Comedy Central half hour.
I forgot about that.
So here's where I pivot to you and where I ascribe her strength and where I see you navigating that. And I admit I've seen Lewis, I've seen Crystal. I've actually never watched Josh live. So I don't know enough about their specific style, but I've now studied you, so I'm going to say these things. So Vanessa has figured out the dance and the fine line where she can be like, I'm going to tell you about growing up in the Valley. I'm going to, I can't get away from the lilt in my voice that says, I'm Hispanic, but my comedy is going to appeal to the white people just as much as my own community. And that's where, when I saw you at Sure Thing, like there was a light bulb moment that said, oh, he's Hispanic, he's brown, but he's talking to a white audience in a way that is absolutely relatable to that white audience. And please don't kill me for this. So this morning, as I'm doing my final prep, I'm like, well, so did George Lopez. He was kind of like, I'm Mexican, and I'm going to tell you a bunch of stories about growing up Mexican, but I'm going to do it in a way that you can relate to, with my predominantly white audience, or, with an increasingly white audience. And so I think that's like you're figuring out that dance of, all right, I'm going to talk about my background because I've been observing both worlds because I'm Mr. Under the Radar here, and I can talk to both groups and appeal to both groups.
I'm still working on appealing to my own people.
Well, yeah, when you say, remember the cousin.
Somebody, I know you're going to talk about me, but I want to deflect. But somebody who does that really well, specifically in that, with that candor, is George Anthony. He just moved from San Antonio to here a couple of months ago.
Yeah, that's a name I've seen more and more.
He's incredible. And that's what I find about, I guess, awe-inspiring about people like Vanessa and George, is that they've figured out how to do that dance, how to tell you something very Latino in a just, I don't say pure way, but in a not even lowest common denominator. What's the word? In a common way, in a way that appeals to relatable. Yeah. Thank you. That's why I'm still working on it. I to be perfectly honest, I don't know how much I want to appeal to my demographic. Maybe that's just part of me being like the same metal kid who's like, "Fuck you! You don't understand me. Fuck you."
Sure.
But growing up, I was always told that I wasn't Mexican enough.
Oh.
And so then I just wanted to abandon it. I was like, well, if that's that, fuck you. I don't want to do that. And like my dad would tell me that I'm not masculine enough. I'm like, well, if that's what being masculine is, I don't want to do that either. Fuck you.
Yeah.
So I have that. That's probably my biggest thing to get over, is like, if I'm not immediately accepted, I'm like, well, fuck all of this. Fuck all of you.
Yeah.
It still helps me write, which is weird. I can't turn off writing anymore. The other day I had a not such a great show, and I came home and I was upset, and I was telling my wife, I was like, I don't even know what the fuck I do this. I started, it's fun, I've had a good run, I've made some good jokes, I've been on some good shows. I think this might be it. And then I did my mixtape show, and I was like, I'm back. So some people call it depression, but I'm still, like even then, the Mexican thing about getting myself diagnosed is still cutting in. Like, you don't need it. You know what's wrong with you. You're smart enough to know, how to maybe even treat it if you just get on the internet, but.
Just fix it. Eat some tamales and you're done.
Sure.
Sure.
We could definitely start. Definitely. I think I've probably already covered that part well into my 30s, and now I just need to start doing the other stuff to get mentally healthy. But I wish that I could. Anytime I talk about comedy in Austin, I always just kind of wish I was other comedians. You know?
Yeah.
Because they can do this. And they can network. And I can do this, but I cannot network. I do not have the drive to go hang out, to go meet people. It's probably a big hindrance. And so I'm coming along this far, right?
Yeah.
I headlined Punch. That was something I always wanted to do. I just wanted to be on. I just wanted to be on Punch.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that makes me the most proud about my particular path is that I've never asked to be on anything. Mm-hmm. That's part of, I think.
That's such a pride thing.
Yes, it's a very Mexican thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, it's making me emotional. But I'm not going to ask. And like, people say comedy's not a meritocracy. And I'm like, well, why not? Let me try. Because I don't want to be disingenuous with people. I don't want to be like, hey, we're friends. And like, hey, come hang out. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I have a wife. I just want to be at home.
Yeah.
So it's taken me a long time to get to this point. I don't know, 8 years. Maybe that's not long. But I think it could have been sped up if I weren't so prideful. But here I am.
Yeah. Well, if you have the spare time to listen to the, I think we're nearing 160 episodes of Comedy Wham, you are not the only one that is terrible at networking and is too prideful to ask for things. It's a whole gamut. You know, there's some that just are genetically coded for those things, and others that are just like, no, I don't want to. Ask for these things that I have worked to achieve. At some point, you will continue to get booked on more and more festivals, and then you'll have a manager, and somebody will do these things for you.
So I just want that. I even thought I could take a bunch of no's, but I'm like, no, there's a limit. there's a limit to how many no's I can take.
Yeah. I don't. There's a woman. She started off in Austin. She's actually more in the improv and like actual stage productions. Adrienne Dawes, and she's her handle is Heckle Her. And she will gladly share this spreadsheet that she maintains to track all of her no's. So she can, she's constantly monitoring what is her yes percentage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. You have to wonder.
Right. Yeah. You always know, where you are, and you can set goals if that's, your thing. And yeah, it's just always knowing exactly what those stats are.
I could definitely be better about setting goals for sure. And like working to achieve them too,
Yeah.
The whole gamut of goals is for later, Leo.
Yeah. But it certainly seems like this year and this summer is turning into, this is Leo's year, because Sure Thing headlining spot, I know what a big fucking deal that is. It's huge for somebody to get that coveted headline spot, to see Grandpa Bearden say yes.
I told him, I was like, because the comedy trajectory in town is you get good and then you go to the hubs, to New York, to LA.
Yeah.
And I told Matt not too long ago, I was like, I want what you do. I want to stay here. This is where my life is. We bought a house. So my life is here in town.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even know if comedy is my life because I'm not including that in my actual life. But I was like, if I can have what you do, I would be okay.
Yeah.
I would feel okay with my trajectory if I could be like, oh, he's a solid host and he's a regular and this and this. And that would be neat for me.
Yeah.
So overall, that's what I want to achieve. So I guess you're supposed to put it out there in the universe and then like, vision board and shit.
Yes, vision board. Yes, I've talked to several people. Jasmine Ellis is a huge,
Oh my God, Jasmine's so great.
Vision board person. I saw her.
Jasmine's one of my favorite people because she's married and she gets it. She gets it.
And guess what, Leo? She asks for what she wants.
She does. She does. She doesn't even really need to. She's so talented.
Yeah.
But
that's my challenge to you. Every night before you get to bed, listen to Jasmine Ellis's latest episode, and she will just talk very openly about asking for what she wants.
Yeah. Yeah, that's her.
Put her episode under the pillowcase. But you were part of the Out of Bounds Festival. You're going to be on Altercation Festival, and I'm thinking Moon Tower isn't too far in the offings.
I would definitely. I will ask.
You don't ask, by the way. That is when you don't ask.
Oh.
However, if Papa Bearden has put you on as a headliner, somebody's watching you.
Ooh.
So, not that I know. Any of these things in an
if
official capacity.
If it doesn't happen, I'm just going to blame you.
That's fine.
Valerie said. I just want to talk about one more thing.
Yeah.
This year, just my presence. You said that you've noticed a difference. I got a job last year at Urban Axes. I teach people how to throw axes.
Oh, cool.
And that has definitely honed, because all I'm doing essentially is hosting a 2.5-hour event and corralling people from one thing to another in a kind of timely fashion.
Uh-huh.
And that has helped me.
You're producing a show.
Yes, I'm producing a show every time I have an event. And that has helped me host all my hosting skills, my stage presence, everything, because I'm teaching people stupid shit. Who cares? And I'm sweating profusely because I usually do. And it's not my forte, but I'm still in it and strong, and I have to make these people think that I'm completely 100% capable. Mm-hmm. And so that training over the past year has definitely spilled into my stage presence.
Fantastic.
I had the mixtape show the other day. And I realized as I was hosting it, I was like, oh, fuck, I'm the exact same person I am at work right now. And I was tossing out snacks and like just doing my thing. And I was like, I realized that I was channeling this energy that I use at work. And I told my wife that, and she's like, totally. I could totally see that. And I was like, fuck, that's weird. It's the first job I've ever had that actually helped me out instead of just giving me material.
Yeah.
Like, helped me be better at the hosting part, at the being in the moment part with other people. So, that's probably some of the growth that you've seen.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. Because,
usually it's all stage time. Usually it's just people like cutting their gums on the work.
Or, they're working, it's just because it's in front of me, and I know there have been comics that have passed through Juice Land, but, or you're working at Juice Land, and how much, does that really help you with stage presence? Yeah. Kind of thing.
So I've definitely noticed a boost in my presence since I've been working there for the past year or so. So
anyone that is entering the comedy career, if they want to, do what you've done, they just need to apply to Urban Axes. We're
actually hiring right now. Urban Axes. Yeah, it's very helpful.
Can you describe what mixtape is? Because I have no idea.
Oh, sure. Yeah, mixtape is a regular showcase. I have a few comedians up, but afterwards, they pick they pick a music video that they love. Okay, and then it's tear it apart. Just have it playing while we kind of do like a Mystery Science Theater thing too.
That's cool.
I love it.
Oh my gosh.
And I particularly want them to pick something that they are excited about because it gets everybody more involved. Nikita Redcar, at the Out of Bounds one, it was James Blunt. So it was easy. It was fodder, right? Yeah. But like the crowd was getting into it, like at the point where he jumps off the iceberg or whatever at the end of the thing. You're beautiful. At that point, like people were like, yelling and like they were into the whole show, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want. I want a fun show. Yeah. I like fun more than I like a showcase. Yeah. So I want people to do like their best 5, 8, 10 minutes and then pick something that they love, and we'll just tear it apart together, because that's always a good time. A good time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now I regret I missed that, but it's coming
You'll
back.
be able to see it in September on a date I don't remember at the moment.
It's okay.
It's 27th, 21st, I don't know.
Okay. Cool. And then you're a co-host for First
Tuesday. Me and Trace do, either we do weekly news, which is the only monthly weekly news showcase. That's what we call it. Where we just make fun of headlines. Or sometimes we'll do like one-off stuff. At Christmas time, we'll have we don't know what a white elephant gift party is.
Oh.
Where we basically just buy like $100 worth of gifts and just give them away to the audience. And then we're like, if you don't like it, figure it out. We don't know what a white elephant party is. So what we like to do is just cultivate a fun atmosphere at our show and kind of let the showcase run from there. Mm-hmm. And then I had somebody tell me not too long ago they really like the way I host the show because it's like no middleman, no fodder in the middle. I'm just like one comedian to the next. You're not here for me. You're here for this showcase. Let's keep it rolling.
It's very on brand for you, the guy who likes to stay under the radar.
Yes, that is. I did not realize that, but yes, it is. I love the spotlight. 80% of it.
Well, all right. Do you want to get into this Rage Against the Machine wormhole?
Shit, what do you got?
All right. I saw them perform at one of the Lollapaloozas when that was still in its early infancy. I've been a huge fan of theirs, and just remember when their debut CD came out, because at the time that's what was popular, is a compact disc, those round things, if you didn't know.
Oh, I spent many a dollar at Sam Goody myself.
And just could not get enough of that whole message, which was interesting because it was on the heels of the whole grunge movement, but they were not classified grunge. They were just this other entity. All right. So then, fast forward. A couple of key things. There was I think it's called Song Exploder. And I only know Zach's name. I don't remember. What's the other guy? Modello?
Tom Morello.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the beer.
Yeah, Tom Modello is the beer magnate.
Yes. Song Exploder does deep dives into particular songs, and they did a deep dive into Killing in the Name of, and they talked about something I didn't learn about Tom Morello and the way he would play the guitar. And I thought that was really cool. And then pinnacle life achievement moment is at South by Southwest. Tom was in town, and I was just walking around from one venue to another, and he was at that little open air area on 4th Street. There's like an empty lot, and I think it was the ACLU had, their area, and we just walked in to him doing Killing in the Name of, but because he's solo, he's only doing the guitar work.
Oh, wow.
And he's got all these people, and they're all ACLU members, and they're all behind him, and they're all singing the song, and it was just like surreal to watch Tom Morello. And this is like small area, so like we're close to him compared to Lollapalooza. And it was just fabulous to hear his guitar work. He's so cool. Incredible.
Yes, he is. He is. He understated because he said he has the technical chops to do like sweeps and big runs for solos and stuff. He does a little bit on the first album, but after that, he's like it's mostly experimenting with different effects and things for his guitar, especially in like Evil Empire. Those solos kind of diminish entirely, and I'm like, you have that ability, but you're like, I like this other thing too.
Yeah.
I love that about him. For me, Rage Against the Machine was pivotal because they were Latino. Same with Deftones. If you go to San Antonio, Rage Against the Machine,
huge.
Deftones, they're gods there. I think it's part of the Latino influence. I mean, they are Latino people, and that is hard to find someone who's successful, cool, and
kind of outsiders too, because these are like cream of the cream, college educated people, and that's and yet they're, talking about all this anti-consumerism and, fuck the government stuff. And it's like, whoa.
One of my favorite things, Rage Against the Machine, is they did a video they did a song for the Godzilla soundtrack, which must have been their record company made them do it. They also did one for the Crow soundtrack. Okay. And the one for the Crow soundtrack is, one of the lines is, AIDS is wrecking the entire African nation, and supposedly a vaccination is in preparation. But the lawmakers don't seem to mind. They say they'll kill them off, take their land, and go there for vacation. I'm like, fuck, that is so good. I've been to my wife's family's pretty wealthy, so we've been on some vacations in the Caribbean, and I love them. I can't enjoy it. Their consumerism is to the point of like, this is for me. This is for to enjoy.
Yeah,
and
but then you see how the people actually live in the shacks, and it's heartbreaking.
There's still plantations. The only slave monument we saw was in the fucking swamp where they organized their revolts, and like I go looking for all that, and it's hard for me to enjoy. I remember when we sat down. It was the first night we got there. It was I think Turks and Caicos, doesn't matter, but the hotel was hosting a beach dinner. All these tables, white linen, just the epitome of class. And every single family sitting there was white. I was the only brown person on the beach eating. Everyone else was black and brown, was working. And I was like, how does nobody else? I mean, I guess this is on me. This is incumbent on me to notice this. Yeah. And so just the whole meal is just like, should I be helping? Like it's hard for me to enjoy those things, and Rage Against the Machine was definitely a way to focus on those. On the Godzilla soundtrack, one of the lines in the song is, "Godzilla is pure motherfucking filler. Get your eyes on the real killer. Cinema, simulating life, real drama, Fourth Reich culture, Americana."
Wow.
And I'm like, this is. Media is produced by people who don't give a shit, to the point where an artist can tell you to go fuck yourself in the song they have to make for you, and they'll still produce it. And the video for it was about the Scottsboro Nine, which was a 9 black men who were put on trial for raping 2 white women on a train. They're completely innocent. But that's what the video was about. It had nothing to do with Godzilla. Wow. It had like one little snippet about them. And I remember learning about that in school. I remember reading about that there, and I was just like, this is just like, they're taking real life and shoving it down your throat, and you don't even know it. And I just thought that was a cool. Maybe that's part of my comedy. I don't know.
Well, that's exactly what my brain is thinking right now. Is you're taking some of the worst elements, but you're packaging them up for us to be like, hey, dude, this really isn't right. But I'm going to make you laugh while I point this out.
Yeah. One of my favorite jokes now is how I talk about a bad sexual experience I had. Because of all the things I grew up with, it should have been classified as hell yeah. But now that I'm older, I'm like, oh no, that's not good. I see how it's not good. And so I like doing it because it kind of flips the script a little bit, where like you're supposed to, I don't know how men are supposed to be, but we're not supposed to complain about it or whatever. Yeah. And you can have bad times. It's just fun to take really gnarly subjects and kind of twist them into people's faces.
Yeah.
When they don't expect it. So I recorded my headlining set at Punch, and I was doing my vanilla gentrification joke. It's about Neapolitan ice cream, and it's why is Neapolitan why is it so segregated? Why are all these colors separate but equal? And why is the vanilla so far away from the chocolate? And then I say, why is this ice cream gerrymandered exactly like Austin? And just every laugh I had just drops away almost entirely. Every time I'm like, yeah, yeah. I love doing that.
Oh,
I
my
love
goodness.
putting that in people's face.
Leo, I hate that we have to start winding down. I'm going to put this as probably one of the most profound conversations that I've had, because somebody who can do that dance of talking about some political and social and cultural issues, but in a way that is captivating. I mean, that's skill. So, good on you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we could keep talking about Rage for
sure. God, yes. Like I said, I stayed up till 6 a.m. watching a thing that had happened 20 years ago.
And I learned from the Thanks Academy. Is this for real? There's a movie that I don't know. It sounded like you were talking about there is going to be a movie about Rage. Or was that just like riffing and coming?
I think that was just riffing. I don't. That would be neat. I would love to have. I would love to see him again. I would love for them to get back together. I don't know if they're also politically oriented. Why would they separate? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where are they going to find that dynamic anywhere else?
Right.
I listened to one of his solo songs, Zach De La Rocha, and it was still pretty cool. But there's something special there.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to make sure we cover before we do our final wind down? I'll give you a chance to do promo stuff in a bit.
I love my family. I don't talk to them. They might actually hear this more than I talk to them. My biggest thing right now I'm trying to work on is how to incorporate my family into my comedy, because they're still not there yet. It's still like I'm only pulling ideas from society, and I haven't started to delve deep, which is what you're supposed to start doing at this point, is start really diving deep. That's where that first like bad sexual experience joke came from, because I just, who am I? Yeah. And so if it never gets said, Belinda, I love you.
I think that may be the first.
But yeah, that's about it. I love my family, and I'm sorry to the whole community for never going out and wanting to hang out.
That's okay. I think they'll forgive you. We're ready now for your final question.
Ooh.
One word
to
describe your future.
Colorful.
Okay. I'll allow it.
I don't know what people say. Dynamic. Debonair. I don't know. You've seen how much confidence I have. It's tentative. Definitely going to happen. I can't stop that.
Sure.
But I don't know. I was just telling my wife last night. I was like, so I know the environment's changing. Yes, of course. Uh-huh. What is speculated is that this environmental change plus a couple of natural disasters is what's going to do it. And so I'm like, and like, might not happen now. In like 40 years, we'll still be alive. And rolling blackouts are probably going to be what kills us. It's like our power's going to go out and we're just going to cook to death in our house. And my wife was like, Jesus! We're just watching Orange is the New Black. So, hopefully in the future I'm not a bummer. I'm a big bummer. Usually I talk like this, but it's like 2 beers in. I'm like, you know what it is about politics. So,
oh my gosh, fantastic. We're all gonna die.
Oh yeah. Super cool.
That is a wrap on Comedy Wham Presents Leo Garcia. Tell us where we can find you on social media, and then plug.
Sure. Twitter, Instagram, at Leo Garcia Comedy. Facebook, don't find me there. That's where my family is. I'd say every first Tuesday of the month you can find me at radio. That's my showcase. Me and Trace put on a hell of a showcase for you, so come check that out. It's free. And then hopefully Mixtape will start becoming a monthly installment at Fallout. We're still giving it a tentative go, but the first month is September, and it will be on a Friday. I just don't remember which one.
Okay. Nice. Very nice. We hope that you have enjoyed learning about how Leo got to be the comedic under the radar genius that
under
you
the
heard.
Radio.
Oh yeah, under the radio coffee genius that you heard today just as much as I have. This has been Comedy Wham Presents Leo Garcia. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you.